All right, welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Victories podcast. I have another special guest that I'm so excited to introduce to you. This is Anna Harrington from North Florida. She's a photographer and so much more. So I'm excited to welcome her on the show. Hey, Anna, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to chat and share all the things today.
Yes. All right, Anna. So tell me a little bit just about who you are and what makes your story so contagious.
Yeah. So I'm a wedding photographer. I'm based in Tallahassee, Florida. And I love traveling. So that's something I'm kind of pivoting into in this next season of weddings is booking more outside of Florida and all that. But I started my business when I was 16 and I'm 20 now. So really like the Lord has really just orchestrated my steps. It's really cool to see like how he was there from the beginning, just leading me where I was supposed to be. And, I never really like planned to start a business or planned to like be a wedding photographer. It wasn't like a dream I had as a little kid. It just kind of happened. Like I got a camera for Christmas one year, started messing around with it, and then COVID happened and started taking photos of friends for fun in my free time. And then eventually I started doing weddings after a lot of learning and soaking in and doing workshops. And I feel like now I'm in a place to really help others, and I would love to start mentoring other photographers. So I'm really excited to be on the podcast and share a little bit about what I've learned and just be encouraging. And one of the big things that I hope to share is how I started my business like as a young person and like under 18, and how I started
Yeah,
doing that. Because I feel like in society, everyone is like, oh, you have to go to college, you have to do the 9 to 5, you have to be strapped to a desk like the rest of for the next 30 years of your life, and then like wait for retirement. It's like that's not a way to live, you know?
right.
I mean, you do need those people that are more like mind wise, like they have to be in a, they're better working in a desk job, or, surgeons, you got to go to college for that.
Of course.
But I feel like the world is pivoting, and for our generation, we need to know that there's more out there. You don't have to do what society says you have to do. Just follow what the Lord is telling you. And I feel like my success story is a success story to tell.
Yes.
Um,
Okay, let's go back a little bit. You
yeah,
said that you started your business at 16 and
yeah,
wow, that for me, I just turned 30. So I have had a little bit of time since I was 16, but
yeah,
I do remember the first time it really dawned on me that people who work 9 to 5s, they do that 5 days a week. They get
yeah.
maybe Christmas and Easter and a couple holidays a year off, but really that is what their life from morning to evening is
Mhm.
repetitively every single day. And
Yeah,
some people feel like that is a comfort and that they
yeah.
find stability in doing that. However, when I was 16, I was very, I mean, I'm really no different to be honest, but I just knew right away that like my personality type wasn't going to fit into that mold.
Yeah, yeah.
And I even just remember having that like, what am I going to do? Like, this isn't, I either need to change or I'm going to have to find something that isn't that typical 9 to 5 job, like you said. So,
Mhm,
I also got a camera for Christmas one year, and that really did open the door to just this whole new world of like
mhm.
making it happen. So, I
Yeah,
want to take it back to that year for you. And
yeah,
when you opened your camera on Christmas, was it something that you had wanted? Tell me a little bit about like the headspace Anna was in that Christmas
yeah.
morning.
I think I had wanted, if I remember correctly, I had wanted a camera. It wasn't like a deep desire, but it was just like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to have like a nicer camera and play around with it. And I remember I had one friend from church. We would always like spend the night at each other's houses each weekend. We would alternate, and we would like get cute outfits on, like go take pictures on our little like iPhone 4s. And I
Oh,
always
yes.
loved like taking pictures of flowers outside and just like having fun with that, and just like capturing the moment. I just became really in love with that part of it too, like just having photos to look back on from certain things, like, oh my gosh, this like year of my life or whatever. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's kind of like how that happened. I think like when my parents were asking me what I wanted for Christmas, I was like, oh, I think it'd be cool to have. And then I didn't really know the exact camera that I wanted. I think that my dad had a friend who was into photography, and then he asked him like recommendations, and then that camera was a Sony A6000 that I got for Christmas,
Okay.
and I'm a Sony girl, tried and true to this day. So that was
I
a
love
great
it.
little starter camera for me, and yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And I was really excited on Christmas morning because I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool gift. Like rather than getting like clothes or something else, it's like this is actually like gonna elevate my life, and I know
Yeah.
I didn't have any idea then, but it's really cool how that happened. But anyway.
Okay, so you got your camera, you're taking pictures with your friends. When did it first really hit you like, I could make a whole life out of this? This is
Yeah,
actually a career that people have. And when did you really make that shift from going to personal photos to like, I'm going to capture the world as I see it, but of other people for other people? When did it really, when did you become that wedding photographer? Did it
yeah.
just go straight to weddings or was it couple? Like, how did that progress?
Yeah, yeah. So as I started doing photos for my friends, people started hearing about like just in the community, like from church and like friends of friends, like, oh, you do graduation, do you do family?
Okay.
And so I did family and graduation for probably like a year and a half before I have ever done like a couple session. And then I think eventually I booked a couple session with one of my like youth pastors or something like that.
Okay.
And so that's how that happened. And then how I booked my first wedding, I kind of had like in the back of my mind, like weddings were like the it thing to do. Like that was like the end all be all whenever you are a photographer. So I was always like in the back of my mind, like eventually I want to do weddings. And I knew I didn't want to do it like during high school because I was, still finishing classes and like SAT and like
Oh,
all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. So it was on the back of my mind, but I was like, I'm gonna wait till like my senior year to really like think about this. Um, and then I graduated high school in 2022, and
Okay.
that fall, I was like, "Okay, I really wanna book a wedding, I just really wanna see what can happen with it," and so I set up a styled shoot to get content, with one of my old high school friends, and she had just gotten married, that previous summer, and it was a super simple styled shoot, like, it was just me as a photographer, I had one friend make a bouquet, and then my friend, she didn't even wear her wedding dress. She wore her rehearsal dinner dress. So it kind
Oh,
of looked
that's
like an
funny.
elopement. And
Yeah.
like those photos are still like pretty for me today to look back on. But now I'm like, oh, I could have done this. I could have done this different. But it was really simple. And I took those pictures, posted them on Instagram, and one of her friends, no, one of her sister's friends saw that I posted those photos, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I guess this girl does weddings because she has photos of my friend with wedding
Yeah.
attire or like somewhat wedding attire." And so she inquired, um, and I booked her wedding for March of 2023, and that was my first wedding.
Oh,
So it's crazy because it didn't take that much. I just had
right.
literally one post from one like super simple styled shoot. But the connection on Instagram just made it happen because I tagged my friend, and then her friend saw it, and she was the one that was the bride. So it ended up working out. But yeah, it was really cool just seeing how the connections happened. And I think that honestly, it was the Lord that like gave me the idea to reach out to her, to Joanna, for the styled shoot because I didn't really have any way to get content until then. I was like, you know what, I'll just do a styled shoot. And so I went to this venue and had her and her husband come, and it was really good, and that's how it happened. And
That's
then
awesome.
that September, so this was like a month later after I had posted those photos from the style shoot, and I booked my first wedding. I went to Hawaii with a Rooted workshop,
Oh,
and
wow.
I don't think Rooted is a thing anymore. It's Danny Purrington. She kind of pivoted into more of other types of education, but she was the leader of the workshop, and I got a lot of content there. And then a big thing was second shooting, and
Okay.
during that workshop, I met one of my current photo best friends. Her name is Tyree Mahaffey. She actually lives in
Okay.
Dallas now, but she is from Chicago, the Chicago area, and we met. And she was like, "I love the way you shoot. Would you want to come second shoot for me?" And I was like, yes." So I second shot. Actually, my very first wedding that I photographed was second shooting for her in Chicago,
Oh,
in
wow.
October of 2022. Yeah. And so that also gave me more content. So really what I'm getting at is if you're starting a photography business, like, and you want to do weddings, like, get content. Like, just
Yes.
get all the content you can. That's what I did, and that is really what helped me, you know, on my Instagram and especially my website, just be able to show like, okay, I do this. I have photos to show for it. It's kind of like the proof, for people to
Yeah.
see. Um, and yeah,
It's not
second,
about resumes so much
yeah,
anymore. I mean, like, I do think
exactly.
that's important if you're applying for a job, but
Yeah, yeah,
today, if you're starting your own business, you really don't need to show a resume to your clients. What you need to
yeah,
show them is that proof of work. And
exactly.
the concept of second shooting is kind of new to me, but I do like the idea of having, people who you can learn from. And I'm really
Mhm.
a student of life. Like, I
Yeah.
really feel that way. So whether it's just getting to know your camera better or kind of
Mhm.
getting to know the shooting process, gaining confidence, I love the idea of second shooting. I don't know
Yeah,
why people don't talk about it more. So I want to
yeah,
dive into that a little bit and just tell
yeah.
me, like, where it was when your friend approached you about
Mhm.
shooting in Chicago. As someone down here on the Gulf Coast, I
Yeah.
imagine, like, Chicago,
I
like,
know.
no.
I was, like, appalled because I had just met her. It was, like, during the week of that workshop in Hawaii, and I guess she was, like, watching the way that I, like, took photos during our styled shoots, and she's like, "I love the way that you, like, see the angles." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool, thank you." And, she was like, "Would you ever wanna come second shoot?" And I was like, "Yes." And so, yeah, that was just incredible because the weddings up in Chicago are very high end, at least the ones that she was doing. So it was just a really cool experience for me to see that and get out of my comfort zone too and be in a different
Yeah.
area. And so the first time I second shot for her was October of 2022. That was a 12-hour day, and that was the very first wedding I'd ever photographed. So that was like, okay, that was a shocker because it was 12 hours, and I was like, okay, do I really want to do this? But after the fact, and I looked at the photos that I took, and I was like, wow, this was so rewarding. Um, and then ended up second shooting for her 4 times last summer in 2023. So that also
Okay.
more content. And yeah, from the standpoint of like learning my camera and like the flash, that was like a big thing that I hadn't really done before, was like practice with my flash and my camera. So
Okay.
shooting really gave me the opportunity to test the light and to see like how I like using my flash. And Tyree was able to help me with that too. So yeah, just even like as a beginner photographer, I think that it's helpful for people to know that like second shooting is really good to be able to just practice and get that content. So yeah, even like having content to practice editing, because that was
Yeah.
still something like in 2022, 2023, I was still kind of figuring out like my editing style. And actually Tyree, who I second shot for, she recommended getting Annie Graham's presets, and so I got her
Okay.
Yosemite pack, and that really skyrocketed my editing and helped me kind of trial and error it and figure out my style. And that really takes time. Like I thought it would happen in like 2 months. I would like tweak it and then have my style, but it took like a whole year more for me to really
Yeah.
find the style and like be consistent and all of that. So yeah, that really just took time. And but yeah, that's another benefit of like being connected with Tyree, who I second shot for. She also helped me in other areas of my business, not just second shooting. It was the editing and other things I had questions about. So
To anyone who's listening on maybe Spotify or Apple Podcast, there is a video version of this podcast that's going to be on YouTube, but I want to kind of describe your style to those who might not be watching. So, give me just in your best descriptive words what makes your images and your style and content stand out among the others. What is something that makes Anna's photos Anna's?
yeah, okay, that's such a good question. I I feel like the word timeless is used so much, but that is how I would describe my photos because I really want to keep that like true color of like the wedding day, but I also have my signature style. So I feel like it's very clean, very timeless, but keeping those natural colors. And I've really, as I've done more weddings, I've come to realize how much I love just like documenting the moments that happen without having to be posed. So I
Yeah.
would say I do have a little bit of documentary mixed in there with my editing style, and I love being a fly on the wall and just capturing like the hugs, the tears, like all those types of things. So yeah, I would say timeless, candid, very true to color, true to life, and
I
I've
like true to
actually,
color. That's
I
good
yeah,
descriptive.
I've been experimenting a little bit. Do you know who Phil Chester is? He's kind of like a more film style photographer.
Yeah.
I've been using some of his film presets, and I've really been loving for like my wedding galleries. I have like different sections in the actual like gallery link online. It's like
Mhm.
getting ready, and then like bridal party, ceremony, and then at the bottom I'll have a little section that says film inspired. So I'll put my film inspired edits down below, which is probably like, I don't know, 50 to 80 photos from the whole wedding day that I have edited in film. So not
That's
like
a
a
lot.
crazy amount, but
I mean,
like
that's a lot, I feel
still.
like.
Yes, yeah. So I've been experimenting with that, and most of them are like 80 to 90% of the photos are still like my regular style, but I've really been loving adding that film inspired category to like the gallery so that people can, or the wedding couple can, download them and have fun with them as well. But I feel like photographers can get so wrapped up in like, okay, I have to have my style and I can't gravitate. I can't, move to another type of style. I have to keep it the same all the time. But like it's okay to have fun. It's okay to experiment. And
Yeah.
like I'm not like for what I'm doing, like I like having the separate section that says like film inspired so the client knows this is just a little extra fun thing. It's not like the whole gallery is gonna be changed.
So,
But
what I'm hearing you say is that you're taking the photos in digital and then you're just adding and you're making them the way that you normally would. You're editing
mhm,
them true to
mhm.
color in your signature fashion. And then you're taking a couple of your favorites and then just
Yes,
making them look like they're film and then
yes,
having
yeah,
those be like a bonus or
exactly.
content or gift almost of
Yes,
like, hey, this is a little bit different of a style. I know you
mhm,
didn't really ask for this, but
yeah,
I, as
yeah,
the artist, wanted to gift this to you. I think that is a lot of good
yes,
value.
yeah,
Like, that is
yeah.
really
And I've loved, like, certain moments, like, I have this one photo from a wedding that I did a couple weeks ago, and, it was during the ceremony, and the mother of the bride was crying, and I put that in the black and white film preset from Phil Chester's, presets, and that just, like, made it, like, the photo.
wow.
Like, it was pretty before, like, the raw photo, but, like, with the black and white and, like, the grainy vibe, I was like, "This is amazing." So I feel like the film can bring out certain moments even more. Um, so yeah, anyway.
And I feel like those types of images, especially of like a mom crying on her wedding day, I think that when, if God blesses them with children later on, like you have
Yeah,
those grandchildren who are going to find this image
exactly.
15, 20 years from now and be like, that moment, I can feel it. Like you said,
Yes,
timeless. There's no
yes,
time between this image and like me looking at it. So I
exactly.
really think that just adds so much more value to the packages that you deliver because
Mhm.
it kind of gives your, like I said, artistic view and
Yeah,
interpretation of that
yeah,
moment, and it's gifting that to them.
yeah,
And you're also providing what you've promised and,
yes.
the
Yeah,
clean, I love that too,
yeah,
but,
yeah,
that's really good. I like that. I'm gonna have to
yeah.
keep that in mind.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I know, as someone who started their business so young, there must have been some hiccups along the way, some things you've had to overcome to get to where you are now. Can you
Mhm.
elaborate a little bit about those moments and maybe share some insight about what it is that pushed you through those moments to get to this point?
Yes. Yeah, I feel like there have been a lot of challenges, but they've all been so rewarding, like, to come through on the other side. I feel like, generally speaking, the biggest thing has been, like, overcoming my fears, overcoming, like, the comfort zone, and doing things that are not comfortable. And
Yeah.
for one of those things being, like, talking to people and, like, being okay with, like, calling a client and, like, that was just a whole new world for me because I was more of an introvert. I feel like photography has made me an extrovert now. Like I love talking to people. I love like meeting clients in person over coffee and like all those types of things. But before I did weddings, I was kind of more of an introvert and like wouldn't really want to talk to people on the phone. I like wanted to text and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I feel like I've kind of had to get out of the comfort zone of that and like just get comfortable with talking to people and sharing my business and being confident in it too. So yeah, that's a big thing I would say. Really just like the societal pressure of, okay, you're not going to college like everybody else, you're pursuing the business, and coming to that conclusion was kind of hard because I knew that it would be a risk to pursue my
Yeah.
business. Um, and I dual enrolled my senior year of high school. So I got my associate degree about a year ago. That was when I decided, like last spring, that I was going to go full time into photography. Because at that point, I was like, okay, I either go to get my 4 year degree or I pursue wedding photography full time. And I'm really grateful that my parents were supportive, either way. So that was really nice. But yeah, it was just like the societal pressure of like, okay, if I don't get my degree, then I'm not gonna have something to fall back on and
Yeah.
whatnot. But it was really just ultimately I had to release it to the Lord and just trust that this is where he was calling me and that he was gonna provide, and he did. And that's just a big thing. Like he always comes through, even when we don't see it, like he always does. So that's been a big
Sometimes he doesn't allow you to have that option to fall back on for a reason, it's like
exactly,
he wants you to be
exactly.
all in.
Yes, yeah, and
Well,
that really allowed me to be all in to decide to pursue it full time and everything.
can you share a little bit about, like, some of the things that you walked yourself through when all your friends were going off to college and
Yeah,
you had something that you loved that was on a separate path? Do you have any advice for anyone who might find themselves in
mhm,
that position now of, like, crossroads,
yeah,
of, "Hey, everyone's going this way, but I see an arrow with my name on it going that way."
yeah.
So, any insight on that?
Yes. Yeah, I feel like I always knew in the back of my mind, it's probably just the Holy Spirit, but I always knew that I was gonna do something different. And I just kinda had to
Okay.
lean into that and just trust. So, yeah, trusting is a big thing that I had to do. But
I love
yeah, I
that.
mean, a lot of my friends, went to college, went to other places, and I did have that desire for a little bit to move out and to, like, go to college and all the things. But once I really started doing weddings and pivoting into that, that desire just kind of went away. I was like, you know what, this is so much more fulfilling. So it kind of happened over time for me that like that whole desire to like do what everybody else was doing just kind of went away. Um, and everything else just became so much more fulfilling. And I guess that's because God had me in that place and where I'm at now, and it feels so good. Like I have no regrets at all, and I'm
I
just so
love
glad because
hearing
like, all
that.
my friends are in school right now doing finals, and I'm not doing finals. I'm like, "Thank you, Lord, I don't have to be in school anymore."
I feel that, and there are so many times when I look around and I'm like, "I am so glad I did not do that because I knew it wasn't for me," like we were saying
Yeah,
earlier with the 9 to 5. However, I do know when you're in that position, sometimes it can feel like, "Oh, man," like and you have to stay true to that faith and
yeah,
trust and really trust, like you mentioned,
mhm,
and, so from someone saying they went, they did, they followed what God put
mhm,
on their heart, it's so refreshing to hear that confirmation from someone who
yeah,
was there. And so I'm hoping that all the listeners right now they hear what Anna's saying and hear you say, "I don't regret it a
yeah,
bit," and also
yeah,
hear me say that because I'm
yeah,
also someone who's taken a non-traditional path and I don't
yeah,
regret it at all.
yeah,
I love that this is a different path, but it's mine. And so,
yes,
anyways,
yeah, and the Lord will take care of us.
yes,
That's just such a big thing I've been thinking about and, like, have discovered over the past, like, year since I've been full-time is, like I mean, the big question in my mind when I did decide to pursue it full-time and, not continue college was, "Okay, am I actually gonna get bookings? Like, am I
yeah,
actually going to be full-time?" Because like, deciding is a difference between, like, actually being full-time because you have to wait for those inquiries to come in and then, market and all that kinda stuff, so it was just kind of a trusting the process and trusting the Lord would bring the people at the right time. Um, and yeah, trust.
Yes, and he always comes through, and sometimes it's like, "Oh, wow, 5 bookings today. How in the world?" And then
Yeah,
sometimes you have those moments where it's like, "I don't know how I'm gonna do this, God, please, please, please."
yeah,
And then something
yeah,
will come in, and you're
yeah,
like, "Wow." Like, so really it is the life and the journey of a business owner and an entrepreneur is taking those risks and for real
mhm,
relying and leaning on him. So,
yeah,
amen.
yes.
Well, I want to know, what is the farthest you have ever traveled as a travel wedding photographer?
Oh, I did actually go to Budapest just for, like, a personal trip with my friend
Wow.
Tyree, who I met in Hawaii, who I second shot for. So we went to Budapest a couple of months ago, and that was incredible. The food was amazing, so fresh, very safe.
And was there a wedding or just
We actually found a couple and did, like, a leisurely downtown shoot with them, so that
God,
was really
that's so
fun.
cool.
But, yeah, that was amazing. But, yeah, destination photography is something I'm more so trying to do more of, like, in the next year in 2025, and I have a couple of weddings that are, out of Florida this year, but I just love traveling so much, so I'm gonna start marketing more for other places. But, yeah, Hawaii for that workshop, and then Budapest, with Tyree. That was
Okay,
incredible.
Budapest tops the charts of anyone I've
Yeah.
ever known who's ever traveled anywhere. So I haven't seen
Yeah.
that on your maybe I didn't scroll down far enough. I'm gonna have to go look for those pictures and
Yes, yeah, yeah.
just
I
check them
should
out.
probably post them again because 'cause they're just so incredible, and, like, the city was beautiful. I feel like people don't talk about Budapest enough. Like, it's always, like, Italy or France or, all those types of places, or, like, London, but Budapest is, like, a hidden gem. And it didn't feel that crowded with tourists, and I think we only saw, like, one other American. Other than that,
Wow.
it was, like, all European people from other places, so, yeah.
Well, I kind of want to poke around in this a little bit because I'm so curious. We met at a conference, and you're
Mhm.
telling me that you met Tyree at another workshop
Yeah,
conference. Give me a little bit of just insight on being a young person, a young woman from the South who is finding friends online to go and travel and finding like minded
yeah,
entrepreneur business people, kind of like us, like,
yeah,
meeting for
yeah,
this podcast. How cool. Like, I mean, that's pretty
yeah,
new in the grand scheme of things. Can you
yeah,
give me a little insight on like how much courage it took to do that the first time?
yes. Yeah, yeah, man, the first time I went to another place and had a workshop or went to a workshop was Hawaii. Um, And how I came across that workshop was through a podcast that I was listening to. It was actually, do you know Cassidy Lynn? She's a photographer in Michigan. She has a podcast called Oh Shoot, and
Oh,
she was
yes, I
actually
do. I do. I do
yeah,
know her. I didn't know it until you said the title.
yeah,
I have to
yeah.
listen to that.
And she was, actually interviewing one of the instructors, at the workshop that I went to in Hawaii, and she was talking about the girl she was interviewing, the Cassidy was interviewing, was talking about the workshop coming up that fall in September 2022, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to go." And I'm never the kind of person to, like, just go and do, and now I am, then I wasn't, and I was still in high school at that time, I was still, like, graduating, so I had never been, like, to a place like Hawaii. I'd always been, like, in North Florida or, like, traveled to Georgia, like, nothing super far away, but I just knew I had to be in the room. I knew I had to be there, and like I said, probably the Holy Spirit giving me that inkling, but I told my parents about it, and when you graduate, it's really nice that people will give you money and, like, all those types of things. So I was able to use
That's
some of
what
that to go to the workshop. Um, and yeah, I learned so much there, and I made so many other connections, and, like, one other connection I made was, with one of the other attendees. Her name is, Sammy Chaffin, and her husband do traveling elopements,
Oh,
and
cool.
we went to Colorado this past, summer together and did some style shoots, and that's how I was able to book my first Colorado elopement in March, was having those
Okay.
photos, so that's a tangent, but anyway, yeah, it took a lot of courage for me to do that because I never done anything that was outside of my comfort zone traveling wise, or meeting other people like that I, where it's in a whole other place. It wasn't like I was going like 2 hours
Right.
down south to like meet some North Florida people or whatever. It was like going to a whole other state at 18, and like it was crazy going overseas too. Um,
Yeah. I
but
feel
it
like I
was
know the answer to this. Would you do it again? Would you recommend are you glad you did it? Like, are you glad that you took that chance?
Yes, I am so glad I did, and it was a big investment because workshops nowadays, especially like week-long ones where you're staying at an Airbnb, they can be like 3 to 5,000 to go total, and not only just like the flight, but like the actual workshop ticket, so it was a pretty risky investment too, but it totally paid off because I learned so much, made so many connections, and was able to book some weddings like with the content I had, and all of that. So it's very worth it to do those things. And like you were talking about earlier, as a business owner, you have to take risks, and that's a big thing that I have had to take a risk in is education, in photography and workshops and style shoots, all those things. But they do pay off.
Yes, I absolutely know, and that's one of the things I thought about when I started this podcast is I have a lot of younger cousins, a lot of female younger cousins, and sometimes you see them struggling with like, should I go to college? Should I join a sorority? Like, the connections, and I'm not hating on any of that, but I'm saying that's not the only way you can do
Yeah,
that. And for that
yeah,
same amount of investment in your time, like your
yeah.
life, your friendships, money, um, all of those things, they add up. And when those decisions do come, can I have that same investment and go to Colorado and learn my camera,
Mhm.
which I've been trying to
Yep,
figure out? Got it. Like
yeah,
there's so many options that I feel like people aren't aware of until they hear other people's
yeah,
experiences. And so
yeah.
I feel so happy that you took this chance on yourself. And, you say 3,000, 5,000. That is a big investment. But to hear that it has came back and that,
Yeah,
you would do it again,
yeah,
that is all the
yeah,
confirmation I would need as a
yeah,
young graduate who is thinking about all the different options out there.
yeah.
And just, no one can take that away from you. What you've learned, those friendships, and especially
Mhm.
going to Budapest and seeing, Hawaii and seeing Colorado. And so like no one can take that away from you. And
Yeah,
that is so beautiful that you've created this opportunity for yourself.
mhm.
And it's been with the Lord's guidance and
Yeah,
your parents' support and friendship. People wanting to show up and help with the early photo shoots, the fashion
mhm,
shoots that you said you did early on,
mhm.
and just Tyree taking that chance to show
Yeah,
you how to shoot weddings and stuff. Like I just love people, and I love that
yeah.
that you've done this. Like your victory story is really, really inspiring.
Thank
So
you, yeah. Yeah, and
yeah.
it's cool to remember too, like, we're all in this together. I feel like photographers are really coming into more of, like, community instead of competition because like, we're all attracting a different client, and we all have a different style, we all have a different personality, so it's really cool to be able to help one another, and, like, I'm so grateful to Tyree, and other people I've met along the way for helping me and just like talking me through things and like debunking myths I had in my mind about certain things, and you know it's been
Yeah.
really cool. So
Well, are there any little tips or, debunks or anything that just like shoot to the top of your head that you're like, okay, if someone asks me this, I'm ready. I'm ready to tell them I've learned this the hard way. Anything like that? You have a platform right now that you can, share, like anything
yeah.
like that going on?
Yeah, I feel like going back to editing, a big thing I had in my mind was that, like, I had to get it done quick, I had to find my style, like, as soon as possible, and then just stick with it, and I couldn't, like, gravitate or move a different direction, so I think it's just important to know, like I was talking about earlier, like, it's okay to play around, it's okay to take your time, and that's what's really important is, like, when you're still finding your style and you're still, like, looking at presets, like it's okay to try things and just trust the process with it because you want to make sure that like the end style that you end up at is the style that you really love and you're really proud of. Biggest thing I can think of that I struggled with was like editing and figuring out like what how to be consistent and all those types of things. And I'd also say like for someone who's still trying to find their style. Do more styled shoots, go to workshops to get the content where you can practice your editing in different lighting, in different backgrounds, like a white building or the trees and mountains, like all those types of things, even like nighttime photos too.
Oh, yeah.
That's also something that is very different with a flash, and also, like, learning, like, ambient light, and, you don't always have to use a flash. It's kind of a vibe now for people are taking more photos, during, like, wedding receptions where it's not just a flash, it's, like, dim lighting, and it's really cool looking, so, like, you can gravitate, and you can do different things. It doesn't have to be set in stone. So, yeah.
Yeah. And as a creative, which we have a lot of creatives listening, I think that's what we find the most attractive is that flexibility and
Mhm.
that ability to grow and change because
Yeah.
I mean, as an artist, I know that if it's not fun anymore, like you're not going to do a good job because
Mhm.
it's got to be fun and it's got to be interesting to the artist for the
Yeah.
art to be good. And so I like that you recommend playing around, getting back to that play and that trial and
Mhm.
error and like finding what you like. And if your heart is in it, then there's a really good
Mhm.
chance that your customer is going to see that or your
Yeah,
client is going to appreciate that. And I think
exactly.
when you're starting out or even, I've been doing this for a minute and like I feel like sometimes I get really in my head about what they're going to think about it. And I have
Yeah.
to, kind of like wake up and say like, no,
Mhm.
wait, like they hired you because they trust you and
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
like what you obviously are doing. So I haven't worked with you directly, but I can tell that you're someone who goes for what your heart likes and like with your images and stuff like even your headshot that you
Yeah.
sent over I was like oh wow I really like this and it
Yeah.
stood out because it was a little bit different, but in a
Yeah.
way, you did it your way, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, like, I can tell Anna likes this." Like, so,
Yeah.
um, just getting back if you're listening, just getting back to what you like and finding that curiosity, finding that
Mhm.
thing that you find interesting, whether it's photography, social media, music,
Yeah.
anything. You can find your people where your heart leads you and where God leads you, and so just kind of find confidence in that
Mhm.
and I think you won't be able to go wrong. You'll find your fulfilling journey by just following your heart and listening to it.
For sure, for sure.
Well, Anna, do you have any recommendations as far as like books or movies or so
Yeah.
anything else like that you
Yeah.
that you'd recommend to anyone?
Yes. I just finished this book actually on Audible. It's called Psycho Cybernetics by Maxwell
Ooh,
Maltz,
okay.
and it's a super interesting book, and I really liked listening to it rather than reading it because I was able to retain the information, but it's a lot about mindset and, like, repatterning, like or repatterning, whatever the word is, like, your brain waves and, like, the ways of thinking and, like, how you think about yourself, how you view yourself like around others, all kinds of different things. And it's actually, I think it was written in the 1960s or 70s by this plastic surgeon, and his name is Maxwell Maltz. And so he talks a lot about mindset, but also like how he would have different clients and different people he would do surgery on, where like they would change like the nose structure, and then it would actually like help them change their personality or something like
Huh.
really interesting. And then there's some more things in there that I'm not talking about, that only scratches the surface, but super insightful book. And he talks about
Psycho cybernetics.
Psycho
Okay.
Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Um, and how I came across that book was actually through Nathan Chansky's Business Blueprint.
Okay, I know
And
him.
I'm currently in the Business Blueprint right now. I think it's been about a month that I've been into it, and he does it every 3 months. So it's like a 3-month long coaching program, and then he'll reopen it probably in like, I don't know, July is what I'm thinking, unless he like goes a different direction. But I have
Okay.
really been getting a lot out of that. And Nathan's niche for that is more like photographers who've already decided to go full time, and that's the kind of people he wants to help, just kind of like elevate the business and like learn more about photography on a deeper level. And so that's more of a long term or longer type of education. But
Yeah.
I highly recommend that photographers who are already full time to look into that and just follow along on his Instagram. And he has a podcast as well called Passion with Purpose, and that's always really, really cool to listen to. But yeah, I've loved being in the coaching program, and we have group coaching calls every other week, and we just had one
Okay.
last night. So it's really nice to be able to talk to him and like have him answer questions and all that. So it's not just like an online course. He also has
Yeah.
the in-person connection. Um, so that's been super helpful. But yeah, I could not recommend that enough. And then obviously the Heart conference. I don't know
Yes.
if they're doing a conference again, but I know they're doing a workshop, which I'm actually going to in 2 weeks.
You
So
are. I'm gonna be following every moment while y'all are
yes,
there. I am so excited for y'all. They are gonna take such good care of you. I'm so excited
yeah,
for you.
I know. I'm super
And so yeah.
excited. Another recommendation for workshops, Revel and Grace.
Okay.
They do workshops and retreats for photographers, and I went to their Charleston, South Carolina retreat in November, and that was amazing. And they like paid attention to detail. They do more of like I guess like luxury type styled shoots during the retreat. But yeah, if anybody wants to follow along on them, it's like Revel and Grace, and they do really amazing workshops as well. I think they are having one in Dallas at some point. I'm not sure if it's sold out yet, but I do know they're doing that, and they do them every several months. So it's good to like follow along and just see what's new. So anyway, another recommendation.
Yeah, I would love to check them out. And just curious, so you're Northwest or North Florida. Have you ever been or heard of Gulf Shores? Is that in Alabama?
Yes,
It's like a little
yes,
tip.
I have.
Okay.
I don't think I've been there, but I have heard of it. Um,
Okay. Maybe if you're ever passing through or whatever, we can link up for coffee and get
yes,
to know each
that
other
would
a
be
little bit
so
better.
fun. We should totally do that.
We should. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I will say I really enjoyed this conversation. Like, cannot believe your stories and just starting a
Yeah,
business at such a young age and being so encouraging to even someone who is a little bit older than you, but who has been there and who appreciates the journey and wants to celebrate the journey that you're
yes,
on because it's not easy. And I know it's not easy, but it is so worth it. It's always really encouraging to hear someone else who has that same relationship with God and who has
mhm.
followed in the same way, those that faith. Um, it's really encouraging. So just thank you. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming
thank
on.
you for having me. This was so fun.
Yes. And before we go, I do want to make sure that our listeners can follow you and hear more about you and book you if you're ever in their area or if they're in Florida. So drop us all of your information. What's your website? Can they find you on Instagram? Share a
Yeah.
little bit of that before we leave.
Yes. So my website is annaharringtonphotography.com, and then my Instagram is also Anna Harrington Photography, and you can follow along on there. Feel free to shoot me a DM if you have any questions or you want to chat, or if you live near me, we can totally like get coffee. Also, I'm actually going to be living in Colorado for 2 months later this year, or actually like in the summer. So like late July through late September, I'll be in Fort Collins. So if any
Okay.
of the listeners are in Colorado, or you're going to be like passing through during that time, like we can definitely connect or set up a shoot or something. That's something I'm trying to market more as Colorado, because I'd love to get some bookings while I'm over there. It's such a beautiful area.
Do you
But yeah,
hear that, everyone? Like, if you're in Colorado, we have someone who needs some clients, needs some content. She's looking for
yes,
you. Go connect.
yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. You never
Yeah,
know. I
I'm really
mean,
excited for that. So that'll be cool. But anyway,
okay. So, Anna Harrington Photography is
mhm,
your website. And then at Anna Harrington Photography is your handle on Instagram. So,
yeah,
that's where you go to find Anna. All
yes.
right. Well, thank you so much again for coming on and looking forward to hearing more about your Colorado experience once you get settled up there and just very, very grateful to get to know your story, Anna. So thanks again.
Yes. Thank you again for having me. This was so much fun.